That is how the situation is unfolding in Kenya's north. What about the critical Horn of Africa region? There is no government to blame for the catastrophe in Somalia. In fact, it is so chaotic in southern Somalia that makes it extremely hard for food aid to reach the millions in need who flee to Kenya. And in Ethiopia, the rapid population growth and the conflict in Tigray region has been the cause of the country's wars for years. But just like Somalis, people who have lost their land or animals due to the drought can only resort to one thing, and that is fleeing. This is their story.
The air is burning hot and the land parched. These animals have not survived a devastating drought in southeastern Ethiopia. Here in the Somali region, there has hardly been a drop of rain for 18 months.
God help us. May He give us rain.
According to the UN, the lack of water has already killed nearly 1.5 million head of livestock in Ethiopia, nearly 2/3 of which are in the Somali region. All the herders say they have lost between 80 and 100% of their animals.
I saw goats eating their own droppings and camels eating other camels. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
The alternating dry and rainy seasons have always set the rhythm of herders' lives, but the last 3 rainy seasons never came, and there has been no sign of the 4th since March. More frequent and more intense droughts are threatening the way of life of these nomadic and semi-nomadic populations.
The pastoralists, as soon as they are trying to recover from the other drought, from the previous drought, they are hit by the second drought. So it makes them impossible for them to recover quickly from the previous shocks. Yeah, so they are so close that these pastoralists they are unable to be resilient.
Some have already left their villages to find work in the city. Others are so obsessed with saving the few animals they have left that they don't even have time to take care of their families. Looking after a child means risking losing livestock. In order to bring her son to hospital, this mother had to lie to her husband.
We're always looking for pasture and water for our livestock. It takes up all our time. I brought my son here without telling my husband. He was against it. He wouldn't have let me come otherwise, because we have so much to do over there.
The UN estimates that more than 5.5 million Ethiopians are severely food insecure due to the drought, a humanitarian disaster that comes on top of another one caused by the Tigray conflict in the north of the country. And it's the youngest who are paying the price. Save the Children travels through the Somali region to identify children at risk and transport them to health facilities. They treat most of them on the spot, giving them peanut-based nutritional pastes or powdered milk if they are babies.
We come across some of the mothers who, because of they are not fed, they are not getting any food, they are not producing enough food for children or any breastfeeding for children.
These mothers are underfed and overwhelmed. With their husbands away looking for food for their livestock, they are left alone to fend for their large families. They often wait too long before going to a healthcare centre, and thereby increase the risk that their malnourished children will need to be hospitalised.
Let's now talk about the situation in East Africa and the Horn of Africa. Is it climate change? Is it the government? What is the problem? Let's try and find solutions to this. And joining us now on One Africa is Robbie Reda. He's the country head for the Climate and Development Knowledge Network in Ethiopia. Also joining us is Dr. Richard Munang. He's the Acting Deputy Director of the United Nations Environment Programme Africa Office and Climate Change Coordinator for Africa. And also we have Dr. Wamalwa Kenyanjui working for IGAD and covering Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, Sudan and Uganda. Gentlemen, thank you very much for making time and welcome to One Africa. I will start with Dr. Richard Munang, when will this narrative stop?
We need a public-private partnership whereby investment, for example, like a simple solar dryer in communities that the community might not afford. Actually, government comes in, but work with the community so that community can start to generate socioeconomic income and opportunities to become viable.
We have to try to build better. For instance, there's a lot of investment in Ethiopia, for instance, on improving agriculture, irrigation schemes, and so on and so forth. Some of these are dependent on diesel generator thus far. So, you can do better things, use solar technologies as water pumping systems. So we need to leapfrog in a way so that the sort of paradigm shift in action and that would require communities to be able to use this thing. So I think you need to work on both.
The Kenyan government has allocated 6.1 billion shillings or over $55 million to a 10-year financing program. Now, this money is aimed at mobilizing climate finances to support local communities. The Treasury Ministry in Kenya says the funds will help local communities across the country build resilience and adapt to the impacts of climate change. Going on to Somalia now, where the International Monetary Fund has prolonged support of nearly $400 million for Somalia and its extended credit facility to August 17th. Now, this is a situation in Somalia, and Somalia has to offset a $5 billion debt. Ethiopia's executive body, the Council of Ministers, announced on Friday it has approved a proposed budget of 786.61 billion Ethiopian birr, which translates to $15.23 billion for the upcoming 2022-2023 fiscal year, which will start on July 8th. Now, $4 billion has been set aside for implementation of sustainable development goals, and $230 million has been set aside for the federal government. Now, this is the situation in Ethiopia. Going back to our guests, and I will start with you, Dr. Omalo Kenyanjui. Where does the money go?
You will find that those funds that are made for building resilience to make sure there is water, there is pasture, then improved livestock production, livelihoods, actually is diverted to other things. And in countries like, say, Somalia, you will find that most of it is diverted into conflict that is ongoing there. In Ethiopia, the Tigray war, you will find that funds are also being diverted there. And the little that remains, as much as they try to build, like, say, animal feed reserves, you will find that it is a drop in the ocean looking at the big vulnerable communities that actually are affected by these cyclic droughts. What
does the government need to do to improve their status and to improve the situation in some of these countries, including your own, Ethiopia?
One thing that can really improve in this context is, that the level of community participation, moving away from the top-down approach to programs or mega project implementation, because there's a challenge there. Also, using funds strategically is important, ensuring that your interventions will result in and will allocate a lot more resource to come in. For instance, there are a number of other international climate change funds that countries can competitively access, like the Green Climate Fund. But I think this budgetary allocation, there's a lot of challenge and there's multiple needs, and funds can get diverted for other priorities that emerge as we go along.
When will this catastrophe end? How can we control this situation? How can we avert this disaster? And how can we implement and use this money resourcefully in these countries?
The best way to utilize resources so that at least we can build resilience of communities is to leverage on the structures that are actually accessible to these communities and are known by them. And across every country in the African continent, including the Horn of Africa, We have cooperatives, local cooperatives in which citizens and communities are actually engaged in. And it's high time that at least resources are channeled through these cooperatives, chamas or njangis as they call in other parts of Africa, so that at least they can actually get down to those that matter. And unless we start leveraging these cooperative structures to be able to trace finance and also ensure accountability, tied to actions that can empower communities, we will actually be having difficulty. Let me just give a very practical example. As we speak today, 1.5 million livestock has been lost in Kenya and about 1.5 million in Somalia. That's about 300, that's about 3 million cattle. And this actually translates to costing about 600 million US dollars. If you are able to target these communities and actually leverage cooperatives to decentralize clean solutions like solar dryers for them to dry their meat, then you will actually be impacting those communities. So what needs to be done is to leverage structures, and this money should be leveraged as risk facilities so that they can de-risk local structures like cooperatives to ensure that money actually gets to those that matter, but focus on actions that can be regenerating income for the communities to build resilience.
Gentlemen, we'll have to end it there. Thank you very much, Dr. Richard Munang, Dr. Wamalwa Kenyanjui, and also Robbie Redder for your inputs today on WION World is One.
Yeah, thank you.